me today. I wanted to, Roger, see if you had any sort of introductory thoughts, and then we wanted to turn it over to Dr. Karasu.
Well, Neil, thank you so much for putting this together. And I was very excited and very much looking forward to this event this evening, because as a spine surgeon, to seeing patients who are sometimes in terrible neurological condition, pain, and following these patients through their difficult journey from diagnosis to treatment to after surgeries, frequently recovery. You can tell that obviously pain can have devastating impact on anybody's psychological status. And we see that. And even a very successful operation that eliminates the pain will there will not only be a physical scar, but there will also be a psychological scar, I guess. And individuals like Dr. Karasu have a long experience treating patients with all types of psychological disorders, but especially depression. And with his wisdom and his experience, and he's published obviously about this, I was really hoping to get a little bit of insight into what we have to learn as physicians taking care of patients with spine problems and pain problems, what these patients go through psychologically and how we should take that into consideration. So that was my reason for really looking forward to tonight's webinar.
Great. Yeah, me too. And we're very honored to have this, the presence of Dr. Karasu as our guest. Just one housekeeping matter, as many of you know who have joined us in the past in Spine Time, we welcome and invite you to ask questions. And the best way to do that is through the meeting chat function, where you can type your question and we will be answering them as they come in when we have the moment. And with that, we turn it over to you, Dr. Karasu, and welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Mehta. Thank you, Dr. Hartl. If it's okay, I want to say a word or two about my experience at your spine center. About 10 months ago, I became your patient with enormous difficulty in walking and pain. And now I am totally restored. So I am most appreciative of the spine center and grateful for your service. I must add that from all the way receptionist to Dr. Mehta, everyone was caring, compassionate, and competent. Sorry about the alliterations, but actually everyone gets A's. And
I appreciate that.
And then Dr. Hartl. Then there is a Dr. Hartl, an extraordinary physician, an incredible, miraculous surgeon, and also a very engaging human being and a professional athlete, well-read, erudite man. I want to especially express my gratitude to you.
Thank you, Dr. Karasu.
Thank you for those kind words.
Now I can go if you like to answer your first question.
Yes.
Well, the pain in any form is one of the most difficult, most likely. And having seen your staff day and night being subjected to patients with pain and still maintaining good mood was most amazing to me. But primarily, all our symptoms, including pain, gets worse if we are unhappy. My work has been, how do you maintain psychological well-being, which can tolerate all illnesses, including pain? So I want to focus on happiness. It is a ill-defined concept, And to some extent, you read in every newspapers and magazine about how to feel better and so forth. Mostly they are culturally defined. In our culture, happiness, something to do with having. We are self-oriented culture, Western culture. We are object-oriented culture. Thus, we want to have more money, more fame, more successes. The problem with that there is no end to it. More you have it, more you want to have it, but because addiction cannot be satisfied by its own product. It creates more and more in one's soul. I see patients over the last half a century with all kinds of symptoms, but some patients come in their mid-40s and 50s, maybe younger. They say, I have everything I need, doctor. I have a beautiful house, family, I have money, I'm in good health, but there is something is missing. I don't know what it is. I cannot put my finger on it. Something is missing. People may say those things in cocktail party. With 5 minutes, you'll pass to the next person. But in the couch, you can go deep into this people's psychological world. You find that, I find that, they are fatigued of the philosophy of consumption. And there is no meaning left in their lives. There's no purpose. I established my career, I have money, everything, but so what is it? Is that it? There's nothing else? Well, actually, there is nothing else. There is no really meaning to life. You have to bring it to it. Moses, you may all know that, when he came down from the mountain, he was carrying 2 stone tablets with 10 commandments on them. When he walked down the valley and he saw Israelites worshiping golden cow, all the words, all 10 commandments disappeared from the stone, and stones become impossible to lift, and Moses dropped them. Life without the meaning is an enormous burden, enormous burden. So how does one establish happiness, joyfulness in a culture that it is basically consumption and object-oriented? I have some ideas in those books I have described in detail. It is from the prism of a psychiatrist. Think about a pie, life as a pie, as a psyche as a pie, psychology. There are 3 or 4 major slices that brings meaning to life. Focusing directly happiness may not be the right way of seeking happiness. It is quite possible that the path to happiness will go through finding a meaning in life, that happiness may be only a byproduct of meaningful life. So what are those pies? One of them is loving others. The other one, loving your work. Third one, belonging. And 4th, believing. Those 2 sort of intertwined. Loving your work or loving others are also intertwined. But love itself is a marrow of life. In fact, it is the catalyst for all relationships. There's a number of kind of love, passionate love, filial love, but our sense of self is actually put together, glued together in our early lives with sense of being loved. If your grandma or mother did not hold your cheeks and say, you love, you're wonderful, you're beautiful, you're the smartest kid I have ever heard, you will not really understand natural love and may not be able to give it to others. But there is something you can do associated filial love, that is friendship, to people that you actually pick, not related to your family. You pick them because you love them. Those are your friends. Friendship is our alternate home.
So Dr. Karasu, if I can ask a question, so much of what Dr. Hartl and I see are folks that may have been happy. They may have had those 4 pieces of the pie. And either over time or suddenly, through some sort of trauma, something happens where those pie portions are disrupted.
Yes.
And how do we use the tools that you talk about
Yes.
to engage with that besides fixing mechanical and nerve issues?
You're anticipating my summarizing statement.
Oh, well, we don't need to summarize yet, but
Okay. The second one is a love of work. It's a life. Work is liber mundi, says Monk. It is the book of life. You learn a great deal about life in working. But more importantly, the love that goes to your work comes back as a self-love. If you don't like what you do, you will not like yourself. And how that happens? Because if you don't match your skills with your passion, you may choose a different profession. But if you match your skills with your passion, you will succeed. Not only you will succeed, you will be actually looking forward to go to work. This doesn't mean perfectness. It doesn't matter. It's just being good at it, what you're doing. It's, even God, after he finished the universe, he didn't say it's perfect. He said, very good, and was good. Belonging related to existence is a coexistence. We don't live in a vacuum. We are social beings. You got to knit yourself community, associations, temples. Believing is also a form of belonging. We believe in together. Josh Goldman asked his father, Dad, why do you go to synagogue every Saturday? You don't even believe in God. Father says, son, people go to synagogue for all reasons. Your uncle goes to synagogue to talk to God, and I go to synagogue to talk to your uncle. It is the congregation that we need. You don't necessarily have to believe in God. But if you believe, that has its own beautifulness. Religion got a bad rap. Actually, it really means ligament, to bond. Religions are normative. They provide structure. They are ready-made philosophies. It's very hard to an individual to create their own philosophy. So from birth to death, has a philosophy presented. If you don't believe in the dogma or the ceremonies you don't like, you can extract religion, the spiritual aspect of it, spirituality or predicate theology. That requires little explanation. There's fellow Ludwig Feuerbach, a philosopher from Germany in 16th century, found a line in Lectio Divina. It says, religions are all subject-oriented, like God, and the praises are the subject. God is love. God is mercy. God is truth. He said maybe attributes, those love, mercy, truth, are to be praised. So he converted God is love to love is God. So you could make love, not a God with small g, and you could be loving, affectionate, truthful, honest, merciful person with small g, not a big G, small g. You could actually be quite happy. But as you asked that question, all these 4 slices related happiness is time limited. Friends die. You get fired from your job. You got illness, you cannot continue to your job. You got a back problem. Okay. So only option you have to have all 4 of them simultaneously. You got to love your work, you got to love others, you have to believe, and you have to belong. Bible says a triple braided rope is not easy to cut. If you have them all, genuinely but passionately, you believe in all those 3 pies, 4 pies, not just as if you're playing, you go to church, but you really don't care. You're genuinely passionate involved, then something occurs. That's called alchemy in psychology. That passion all of a sudden turns into compassion. Compassion saves all of us. If you embody the compassion, you are actually quite immune from external factors. Here is one little story, and then I will stop.
Dr. Karasu, real quick, can you repeat the 4 slices? There are several questions of listeners who would like you to explain the 4 slices again.
Or even just to name them.
Yeah, okay.
Name them.
The love is loving others, love of work, love of belonging, and love of believing.
Thank you.
So it is a story about the compassion, eternal happiness. An old country, a Nasreddin Hoja was 85-year-old, a little younger than I am, planting an orange tree. A passerby says, "What are you doing, old man? You will never live long enough to see the fruits of this tree." Hoja says, "You are absolutely right. I will never eat fruits of this tree, but I have eaten fruits of trees planted by many others." So here is the ending statement. Voltaire is a philosopher, the only one who has actually did the homework studying in the word, in the Candide, what is happiness? If you ask the kings, the wealthy, the poor, everyone else, he came to conclusion that happiness is cultivating your garden. He was partially right. You should cultivate your garden. But real happiness, joyfulness, comes from cultivating other people's gardens. That's an eternal happiness.
Difficult to follow on that, follow up a question, but I guess you talk about meaning, and many people read and experience the quote unquote midlife crisis, but it sounds like meaning evolves over time. Your meaning of others, meaning of work, meaning in beliefs, it evolves over time, and it probably the definition and values change as you go.
Yes. Children don't talk about the meaning of life or happiness. These are adult questions. Nor do people who are struggling to make a living talk about the existential crisis. It is at a certain age and place in life that you have reached to some place to have enough room to ask that question. That means that basic needs are met.
Dr. Karasu, let me ask you a question. You mentioned the true path to eternal happiness is not only to nurture your own garden, but other people, other individuals' gardens. Or so basically, do not only think about yourself, but think about your colleagues, your companions, your friends, your families, people who live with you and around you. Now, what we see in patients in pain frequently is that patients in pain, obviously they're very centered on their own experience. They're in terrible pain.
Yes.
And sometimes as a physician or anybody, or maybe also as a relative, as a friend who's witnessing that, it can seem like sometimes people who are in a lot of pain are really self-centered. And what you told us, though, is, that maybe there's a path. Is there a way to mitigate the pain or manage the pain or live with pain by trying to take the focus away from yourself and do something that it's easier said than done? I've probably never been in this type of pain, but I'm just wondering, there are ways of potentially enduring pain, managing pain, and maybe overcoming pain by applying what you told us, namely nurturing other people's gardens. Is there something, what are your thoughts about that?
The pain, as we were discussing last time we met, pain actually doesn't have to hurt. It is the depression that comes with pain makes the pain unbearable. If you could dissociate pain, and local pain, especially in your profession, usually in your back and your legs, as I have them, I don't feel them. I know they exist. It is not getting depressed, and that requires not antidepressants. That requires being happy in spite of that. It's very hard to tell people who are in pain, try to be happy. But you could go on a small scale to say, but your arms are not hurting. It's a question how you could focus on what is right, not what is wrong with you. The depression comes from negative preoccupations. And that's kind of slippery slope to pain, unbearable pain and depression.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. It's not really the pain, but it's the hopelessness and the frustration that come with the pain that cause the real suffering.
Yes.
And I guess a sense of whether there is an end in sight, and that's your hope in seeking care or seeking opinion, that I'm experiencing this, I can bear with it, but is there an end? And that is often asked of us. What is the cause, and what do we do to end it?
Yes. Well, you have a very difficult job. You may be able to find out the cause. You may be able to alleviate that. In someone like me, you cure me totally, and some of them not so curable. The idea then your role shift from being surgeon to psychotherapist, minister, physician, to say that it is just the question how to adapt, how to be resilient, how to shift the emphasis from your illness to what is well with you. I can still hear, I can still see, I may not be able to talk, I'm in a wheelchair, but I can talk. The gratefulness of what you have. The brain is conditioned to go to negative places. As I was telling Dr. Hartl to you last time, that it's a neurological almost. Can you shift the pathway from pain, what's hurting, to pain, to depression, to hopelessness, to somewhere else that actually things are working. Some things are working, and focus on that and be grateful for it. It is too much to ask, but any other path has never worked. If you could make someone, what is the purpose of right now your life? I have one patient actually that you treated and doing relatively well in painkillers. I asked him to write a book about his experience, and I think he's going to make it a bestseller.
Wow.
How to shift the emphasis from being sick, vulnerable, pitiable, and convert it and sublimate to something active, energetic, useful, productive. Not indulging into pain and coming to you every other day with pain. But pain is energy. Pain is energy. How to convert that energy into something useful rather than sitting on it and getting unhappier. And the unhappier that you are, worse is the pain.
Can I ask you another question, Dr. Karasu?
Of course.
You talked about passion and how important it is to match your skills with your passion.
Yeah.
As a father of 3 teenagers who tell me every day that they haven't found their passion yet, and maybe this is a little bit off topic, but I think it is important because people with passion maybe have a better way of handling stress and pain. What is your advice for anybody, but especially younger people who are looking for a passion in their life? How do you find a passion in your life?
It is a family who let kids totally loose. Find your passion. They say, in fact, like this: go where passion is. Teenagers' brains are not totally formed, as you know. Parents actually have to find a path for them. And you have to introduce them to different passions in early years. There are phases in our life that imprinted learning occurs. That's the time that parents have the greatest power. Imprint in them something. Especially your own passion. If you're a musician, buy them violin. If you're an athlete, buy them a football. If you're a writer, buy them books. You have to introduce passion to children. The children has to be educated about their passion as well. And otherwise they will be lost. There's no way they could find their passion. They may eventually, in the long run, everyone finds sooner or later, or get lost. But it's imprinting phases when the person is learning language, when the language is learned without any effort from anyone's part. There's no schooling. By the time 4 or 5 kids talking English, that's imprinted learning. You have to imprint passion to children.
So that's work. That's requires time, attention, engagement with people and children.
It is so true, by the way, and research shows, that's part of the Harvard study, that people who have children are less happier than those who don't have it. That doesn't mean you shouldn't have children, but it takes enormous time and energy and money to raise kids. That is the compassion for your own filial attachment. The enormous pleasure comes with having children, but at some cost. And when the kids are found floundering, because parents really either don't have resources, though they don't have time, how to raise children.
Yeah, certainly relevant. And, Roger, you have 3 boys. I have, 3 kids, and I have three boys, a little younger. It is incredibly difficult at time. But Dr. Karasu, I mean, believe it or not, our time has already ended, and I feel like we are just getting started, just scratching the surface here. We will definitely have to have you back to continue this conversation. And I think for the first time, we've left a lot of our audience just listening and focusing. A couple of questions came in about your 4 slices of the pie. I think, Roger, what do you think? We should create a part 2 sometime later this year.
Terrific. As I'm listening, there are more and more questions and ideas that come up. There's so much about the feeling of happiness. And there's this one study that comes to mind from Harvard, I think that is as well, where they looked at the degrees of happiness after having a spinal cord injury versus winning the lottery. And a year later, they found that people had an equal level of happiness. Are you aware? Have you heard about that? Are you aware of that?
I'm aware of that, and they negate it.
I'm sorry?
They negated that conclusion.
Oh, really?
Yes.
That makes me feel better. Yeah.
Yes. In the long run, you see, the point of starts, they were too short time study. That was not one of those 70-year studies.
I got it.
Great. Well, we're getting feedback from the audience already to invite you back. So it's a done deal. We will work on that. Thank you as always, Dr. Karasu.
I'll be glad to come to talk. I don't want to come back for another surgery.
No, we don't need that. We've moved our passion to something else now, not to reoperate.
I'm kidding. I'll be glad to lie down in Dr. Hartl's operating room anytime.
Well, we won't sharpen the knife though. We'll just talk.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, and have a good night. Please look for the record of this one. And as always, our past sessions are on YouTube. We will be back in 2 weeks, I believe. If I have it correct, are we talking about winter sports in 2 weeks, potentially?
I think posture.
Or posture, sorry, posture. Okay, we've got an action-packed January. So see everyone in 2 weeks and have a good night.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Thanks.
So what do you think?